Have you ever felt like a spectator in your own life? As if some unseen force were pulling you towards a decision you both desired and dreaded. You watch yourself walk, you hear yourself speak, but the person in control feels like a stranger. It's a chilling thought, the idea that our will is not entirely our own, that a thought, once it takes root, can grow into a monstrous force that uses our own hands and feet to carry out its terrible logic. Today, we delve into a mind where this feeling is not a fleeting thought, but a terrifying, all-consuming reality. We explore a world where a single abstract idea commits a murder, and a young man is left to live with the consequences. What happens to a man when he decides he is above the moral law? Not just any man, but a brilliant, proud, impoverished student, rotting away in a closet-sized room in the sweltering, stinking heat of a St. Petersburg summer. This is the central, agonizing question at the heart of Fyodor Dostoevsky's masterpiece, Crime and Punishment. This is not a story about the mystery of who committed a crime. We know who the murderer is from the very beginning. The real mystery, the one that Dostoevsky peels back layer by agonizing layer, is the mystery of the human soul itself. The book asks, what happens after the crime? What is the true nature of punishment? Is it the judgment of the law, the cold walls of a prison cell? Or is it something far deeper, something that happens within the labyrinth of our own conscience? To understand the sheer power of this novel, you have to understand the man who wrote it. Fyodor Dostoevsky was not a detached academic who theorized about suffering from a comfortable study. He was a man who lived on the knife's edge of existence. As a young intellectual, he was arrested for his involvement in a progressive literary circle. He was sentenced to death. He was led out before a firing squad, tied to a post, and forced to listen to his sentence. He watched as his friends were prepared for execution. And then, at the very last second, a messenger from the Tsar arrived, commuting the sentence to years of hard labor in a Siberian prison camp. Dostoevsky lived through the moments where he believed his life was over. He stared into the abyss. And what he brought back from that experience, what he poured onto the pages of his novels, is an understanding of the human psyche under extreme pressure that is unparalleled in world literature. He understood that the greatest dramas are not fought on battlefields, but within the silent, tortured chambers of a single human heart. Crime and Punishment is his grand promise to you, the reader. It is an invitation to take an unflinching journey into one such heart. The book offers no easy answers, no simple heroes or villains. Instead, it offers a raw, visceral, and profoundly moving experience. It promises to take you so deep into the mind of its protagonist, Rodion Romanovich Raskolnikov, that you will feel his feverish pulse, his gnawing guilt, and his desperate, contradictory longing for both isolation and connection. By the time you turn the final page, you won't just have read a story, you will have lived through a psychological and spiritual ordeal that will force you to confront the darkest potentials and the most sacred possibilities of what it means to be human. The story begins on an exceptionally hot evening in early July. We meet our protagonist, Rodion Romanovich Raskolnikov, a former student emerging from his tiny, coffin-like room. The city of St. Petersburg is not a backdrop, it is a character in itself. It is a city of suffocating heat, unbearable stenches, and overwhelming crowds of drunken, desperate people. Raskolnikov is crushed by poverty. He is hopelessly in debt to his landlady, and the thought of meeting her on the stairs fills him with a sick, frightened feeling. He is handsome, intelligent, but dressed in rags so shabby that even in this part of town, he attracts attention. His hat, a grotesque, worn-out thing from Zimmerman's, is a particular source of terror for him. He thinks, trifles are what matter. It's just such trifles that always ruin everything. But it is not just poverty that is tormenting Raskolnikov. It is an idea. A dangerous, intoxicating idea that has been growing in his mind for over a month. He has written an article, we later learn, in which he argues that humanity is divided into two categories, the ordinary and the extraordinary. Ordinary people are simple material, bound to live in submission and obey the law. But the extraordinary ones, the Napoleons, the great leaders and innovators, have an inner right to transgress the law, even to shed blood, if it is for the fulfillment of their idea, for the betterment of humanity. And Raskolnikov, in his pride and desperation, has begun to ask himself a terrifying question: am I an extraordinary man? Or am I just a louse like everyone else? To test this theory, to prove to himself that he is not a trembling creature but a man who dares, he is fixated on a single, stupid act. He plans to murder an old pawnbroker, Alyona Ivanovna, a woman he sees as a spiteful, useless louse, sucking the life out of the poor. He reasons that her death would be a net positive for the world. Her money could be used to save hundreds of families from ruin, perhaps even to launch his own great career, allowing him to become a true benefactor of mankind for one life. A student argues in a conversation Raskolnikov overhears, thousands would be saved from corruption and decay. One death, and 100 lives in exchange. It's simple arithmetic. This idea becomes a monstrous obsession. He makes a rehearsal visit to the pawnbroker's apartment, counting the 730 steps from his own gate to hers. He feels a nervous tremor, a sinking heart, but he pushes on. He notes the layout of her apartment, the way her little eyes glitter with distrust, the keys that jingle on a steel ring in her pocket. The whole experience is degrading, loathsome, and yet he is drawn to it. The final push comes in the form of a letter from his mother. It is a heartbreaking account of his sister, Dunia's, own sacrifice. She has accepted a proposal from a wealthy, odious man named Peter Petrovich Luzhin, a man she does not love, solely to secure a future for her family and most importantly for Rodia. She is selling herself for him. Raskolnikov is enraged. I won't have your sacrifice, Duneka. I won't have it, mother. It will not be. So long as I am alive, it will not. It will not. I won't accept it. But what can he do? He has nothing. He is a failure. This letter, this sacrifice of his sisters, becomes the final justification for his own terrible plan. He is not just doing it for himself now. He reasons he is doing it to save them. The dream he has just before the murder is a horrifying premonition. He is a small boy again, walking with his father. They pass a tavern where a group of drunken peasants are savagely beating a small, old mare trying to make it pull an impossibly heavy cart. The boy in the dream is overcome with horror. Father, father, he cries, what are they doing? Father, they are beating the poor horse. He runs to the dying animal, puts his arms around her bleeding dead muzzle, and kisses her eyes. He wakes up in a cold sweat. Good God, he cries, can it be that I will really take an axe, that I will strike her on the head, split her skull open? Good God, can it be? He renounces the plan. He feels a sense of freedom, of peace. But then, by what seems like a fatal coincidence, he overhears a conversation that changes everything. He learns that the pawnbroker's timid half-sister, Lizaveta, will be away from the apartment the next evening at precisely 7 o'clock. The old woman will be alone. He feels that he has no more freedom of thought, no will, and that everything has been suddenly and irrevocably decided for him. The crime itself is not a clean, rational act of an extraordinary man. It is a clumsy, feverish, horrifying butchery. He goes to the kitchen to get the axe, but Nastasia the servant is there. His plan is already failing. But then, as if by some dark miracle, he sees an axe under the porter's bench. One reason fails, the devil helps, he thinks. He goes to the apartment. He rings the bell. The old woman is suspicious. He gives her a fake pledge, a piece of wood wrapped to look like a silver cigarette case. As she turns to the window to unwrap it, he brings the blunt side of the axe down on her head. His hands are weak, numb, wooden. It is as if he is not using his own strength. Blood gushes as from an overturned glass. As he is ransacking her chest, stuffing his pockets with trinkets, a sound from the other room freezes him. He has forgotten Lizaveta. She has come back. In the middle of the room stands Lizaveta, white as a sheet, staring in stupefaction at her murdered sister. She is so simple, so browbeaten, that she doesn't even raise a hand to protect her own face. He rushes at her with the axe, and she collapses at once. He has not just killed a louse, he has killed an innocent. The theory is already drenched in blood he did not intend to spill. This is where the real story of crime and punishment begins. The punishment is not the 8 years he will eventually be sentenced to in Siberia. The punishment is immediate, and it is absolute. In the moment he brings down the axe, Raskolnikov cuts himself off not just from the law, but from humanity itself. He is plunged into a state of profound alienation, a fever of paranoia and guilt that becomes his living hell. He gets away by a series of near-miraculous chances. He hides in an empty, freshly painted apartment as the pawnbroker's next visitors, Koch and another young man, discover the door is locked from the inside and go to fetch the porter. He slips out unnoticed. But he is no longer in control. He is in a delirium, a blankness. He hides the stolen goods under a large stone in a deserted courtyard without even looking at what he has taken. The money, the supposed motive for his crime, means nothing to him. The very next day, a summons arrives. A summons to the police office. The porter announces. His heart freezes. This is it. They've found him out. But when he arrives, trembling and on the verge of collapse, it is for something else entirely, an IOU, a trivial debt he owes his landlady. The relief is so intense he almost faints. But in the office, the police are discussing the murder. He overhears them talking about the case, and in his feverish state, his pride and his terror warring within him, he engages them in a dangerously clever debate, almost confessing, almost betraying himself with every word. This is the beginning of his cat and mouse game with the chief investigator, the brilliant and unsettling Porfiry Petrovich. Raskolnikov is now a man divided. His intellect still tries to justify his crime, to cling to his theory of the extraordinary man. But his soul, his heart, is sick with guilt and horror. He is tormented by nightmares. He wanders the city like a ghost, drawn to the scene of the crime, drawn to talk about it with a terrifying, self-destructive compulsion. His family arrives insane. Petersburg, his loving mother, Pulcheria, and his proud, devoted sister, Dunya. But he cannot be with them. The love they offer him is a source of unbearable torture, because he feels he is no longer worthy of it. He has placed a terrible, bloody gulf between himself and everyone he has ever loved. He tells them, leave me alone. I decided this beforehand. Whatever may happen to me, whether I come to ruin or not, I want to be alone. Forget me altogether, it's better. Two figures emerge from this self-imposed hell to offer him two starkly different paths. The first is Svidrigailov, Dunya's former employer, a wealthy, depraved, and deeply cynical man. Svidrigailov is, in many ways, the man Raskolnikov tried to be. He is a true transgressor, a man who seems to live entirely without a conscience for his own pleasure. He has heard Raskolnikov's confession to Sonia, having been listening from an adjoining room. He now holds power over Raskolnikov. Svidrigailov represents a world without moral law, a world of pure, selfish will. He tempts Raskolnikov with the idea of escape, of using his secret to his own advantage. But Svidrigailov's world is a dead end. He is haunted by ghosts, bored by life, and sees eternity as nothing more than one little room, like a bathhouse in the country, black and grimy and spiders in every corner. His path is the path of nihilism, and it leads only to self-destruction. In a final, chilling sequence, after being rejected by Dunya, he wanders through the rainy city, has a series of nightmarish dreams, and finally, in the cold light of dawn, puts a revolver to his temple in the presence of an indifferent witness. The other path is offered by the most unlikely of saviors, Sofia Semyonovna Marmeladov, known as Sonia. Raskolnikov first meets her father, a pathetic drunkard, in a tavern. He hears the tragic story of how Sonia, to save her family from starvation, has become a prostitute, receiving the yellow ticket that registers her with the police. Raskolnikov is initially fascinated by her, seeing her as another great transgressor, someone who has also overstepped a moral boundary. But he is wrong. Sonia is not a transgressor out of pride, but out of a profound, sacrificial love. She is the living embodiment of Christian humility and compassion. He goes to her room, a large, irregularly shaped room that looks like a barn, a symbol of her own misshapen life. He torments her, he questions her faith, he tells her that perhaps there is no God at all. And she, in response, simply whispers, "What would I be without God?" It is to this girl, this meek and humiliated creature, that Raskolnikov finally confesses his crime. The scene is one of the most powerful in all of literature. He expects judgment, but instead, he finds a bottomless well of compassion. "What have you done? What have you done to yourself?" she cries, not for his victims, but for him. She flings her arms around him, kisses him, and weeps for his suffering. "There is no one in the whole world now who is as unhappy as you." Sonia does not offer him an easy way out. She offers him the way of the cross. She tells him what he must do: go at once, this minute, stand at the crossroads, bow down. First kiss the earth which you have defiled, and then bow down to all the world, and say to all men aloud, "I am a murderer." Then God will send you life again. She gives him her own cypress, wood cross, and tells him they will go to suffer together. This is the turning point of the novel. Raskolnikov must choose between the empty freedom of Svidrigailov, which leads to suicide, and the path of suffering and atonement offered by Sonia, which leads to the possibility of a new life. His psychological battle with Porfiry Petrovich reaches its climax in a series of intense, claustrophobic interviews. Porfiry is a master of psychology. He has no concrete evidence, but he understands Raskolnikov's soul. He doesn't arrest him. Instead, he lays a trap of logic and empathy, explaining to Raskolnikov that he is psychologically incapable of escaping. Freedom will lose its attractions. Porfiry tells him, "You'll begin to brood, you'll weave a tangle round yourself. You'll worry yourself to death. You'll fly straight into my mouth and I'll swallow you, and that will be very amusing." Porfiry's genius is in understanding that the true prison is not one of stone and iron, but the one Raskolnikov has built in his own mind. He even gives Raskolnikov a way out, a path to a lesser sentence if he will only confess. He tells him, suffering too is a good thing. Suffer. Maybe Nikolai is right in wanting to suffer. I know you don't believe in it, but don't be overwise. Fling yourself straight into life, without deliberation. Don't be afraid. The flood will bring you to the bank and set you safe on your feet again. In the end, it is Sonia's path he chooses. Driven by an inner compulsion he can barely understand, he goes to the Haymarket, the chaotic heart of the city's suffering. He kneels in the middle of the square and, to the jeers and laughter of the crowd, he kisses the filthy earth with a sense of bliss and rapture. He has accepted his connection to humanity, his sin against the earth itself. And then he walks to the police office. He sees Sonia following him, a silent, constant presence. In the office, he finds the explosive lieutenant, Ilya Petrovich. He tries to speak, but the words won't come. He is about to leave, but he sees Sonia's pale, horror-stricken face, and he turns back, and then softly and brokenly, but distinctly, he says, "It was I who killed the old pawnbroker woman and her sister Lizaveta with an axe and robbed them." The epilogue finds Raskolnikov 9 months into his 8-year sentence in Siberia. At first, his old pride remains. He does not repent of his crime, only of his failure. He is ashamed not that he killed, but that he was a louse who couldn't carry it off like a Napoleon. The other convicts, simple men, sense his intellectual arrogance and hate him. They call him an infidel. "You're a gentleman," they say. "You shouldn't hack about with an axe. That's not a gentleman's work." He is more alone than ever. Sonia has followed him to Siberia. She visits him when she can, a quiet, constant source of love that he, at first, resents. But then, he falls ill again. He has a dream of a terrible plague, a plague of ideas, where microbes endowed with intelligence and will infect the world. Everyone becomes convinced of their own infallible truth, and they slaughter each other in a frenzy of self-righteousness. Whole villages, whole towns and peoples were driven mad by the infection. He dreams. He realizes that his own theory was just such a plague. After he recovers, he sits on the bank of a broad, solitary river. Sonia comes and sits beside him, and there, in the vast, open steppe, something finally breaks within him. How it happened he did not know. But all at once something seemed to seize him and fling him at her feet. He wept and threw his arms round her knees. At that moment, he finally understands. He understands that he loves her, and that she loves him. The 7 years of his sentence now seem like a short time. He had risen again and he knew it and felt it in his whole being, while she lived through him alone. His intellectual journey is over. The life of theory has been replaced by life itself. His resurrection has begun. So, what makes crime and punishment so radically different, so utterly essential, even today? It's this: it is not a whodunit, but a whydunit, and perhaps the first and greatest psychological thriller ever written. Most crime stories end with the capture of the criminal. Dostoevsky's story begins with the crime, because he is interested in a far deeper question: what does it mean to be punished? He shows us that the real prison is not in Siberia. The real prison is the one we build for ourselves when we sever our connection to our fellow human beings. This book is for anyone who has ever wrestled with a dark thought. It's for the seeker of truth who understands that the most profound answers are rarely simple. It is for the person who is fascinated by the eternal struggle between faith and reason, between the pride of the intellect and the humility of the heart. If you are looking for a story that will challenge you, that will stay with you, that will burrow into your soul and force you to look at the world and yourself in a new light, then this book is for you. Who is this book not for? It is not for the reader seeking a light, plot-driven escape. It is not for those who want clear, cut heroes and villains or easy moral victories. If you are uncomfortable with ambiguity, with suffering, with long, feverish dives into the darkest corners of human thought, then perhaps you should look elsewhere. This is not a comfortable book. It is a necessary one. The single most valuable takeaway from Crime and Punishment is the profound and timeless truth that a human being cannot live by theory alone. Raskolnikov's crime was not born of simple greed or malice, but from a brilliant, seductive, and ultimately poisonous idea. He believed he could use his intellect to reason his way beyond the ancient laws of the human heart. Dostoevsky shows us, with terrifying clarity, that this is the most dangerous illusion of all. The true punishment for his crime was not the legal sentence, but the soul-crushing alienation that followed. And his redemption was not found in a better theory, but in the simple, unconditional, and inexplicable love of another suffering human being. That stranger in control of your own actions, the one we spoke of at the beginning. Dostoevsky gives him a name and a face. He shows us the terrifying power of an idea to possess a human soul. But he also shows us the way out. This summary has shown you the map of Raskolnikov's hell. To truly feel the fire and witness the possibility of grace, you must walk through it with him, page by page. Dostoevsky's prose is not just to be read. It is to be experienced, to be lived. You won't just be reading a book. You'll be confronting a piece of your own soul. Click the link in the description below to get your copy of Crime and Punishment. And while you're there, don't forget to like this video and subscribe for more journeys into the heart of the world's greatest literature.